Thank you for coming to check out another episode of the Stash Cast, where we have interesting conversations with interesting people focused around the world of commercial real estate prop tech. The Stash Cast is brought to you by Needle. What if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? You can with Needle. Come check it out at Needle, NEDL.us to learn more. All right. I'm excited today. We have Lala Elizondo here today. She has a background in business and startups and also commercial real estate. So it touches on a lot of the things that we're working on. So Lala, thank you for joining us today.
No, you're welcome, Sash. It's a pleasure to be here and I have a lot to learn from you because of your CCIM and brokerage experience. As I was saying previous this conversation, I have an extensive business background and I'm enjoying this shift in my career now, full-time focused on real estate investing and raising capital for real estate that just started only 3 years ago. But I'm sure interesting topics and I'm sure we'll have an interesting conversation.
Yeah. So I guess we've talked a couple of times now, but for the folks at home that aren't familiar with you, why don't you give a little bit of background of who you are and what you do and how we got to today?
Sure. It could be short or long. You stop me or you want me to go more in depth, I can go more in depth with each.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was born in the US in South Texas, actually in Brownsville, a small town in the valley and the border town from Mexico. But I grew up in Mexico. Most of my professional life has been in Mexico, except when I moved. During my kid, I lived in LA for a year, and then I came to business school to Babson, which is a business school that focuses on entrepreneurship. That was 15 years ago. And then went back to Mexico for my professional life. Within my professional career, I traveled abroad a lot. My last corporate job was 11 years ago. I was a business development manager for Pernod Ricard. So I was in CPE. And that position took me to travel the whole world. Especially, I went to Sub-Saharan Africa. That's from Nigeria down. And a lot to the US, etc. So you could say that I'm a global person. I also had the opportunity to live in France for a year after high school. But in my heart, I'm Mexican and Mexico is my country. And now it's been 3 years that we moved to Austin, Texas. And it's a little bit about where I've been. So coming from that, career-wise, I have a major in business economics and marketing. I worked for PepsiCo for many years, then came to business school, worked for Pernod Ricard. And then I decided to jump into the entrepreneurial world because I wanted to make more of an impact in general. Like I love the corporate world, but I felt that I wanted more. Like I wanted a bigger challenge. I was born in a family that my father's an entrepreneur. I was fortunate to watch him build a company from scratch to make it like a big company, important company in our area. So I had that example in my home. And yeah, so my first venture, I've launched several businesses. My first business was in the restaurant arena, which I always say, I don't know why I did that because I hated it, to be honest. But it was,
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
I just didn't know. I can say that I'm a generalist. So I get what I do. I normally find a way to like it and I focus and I'm passionate. So I commit to an objective. So, and I could do whatever. And someone told me I had been thinking about jumping to the entrepreneurial side for long and I was like, just do whatever. So I like the concept of a healthy restaurant. And well, long story short, that grew to 4 branches and I kept on doing that. And then my business partner, Maricela, I met her. She was at MIT while I was at Babson at their business school. And we built a startup. So that was my second venture. It's Maricela, Alba, and me. We're 3 partners. And at that time, there weren't any companies it was a marketplace that connected people that needed beauty services with beauty suppliers. As in many startups, we had to pivot for many reasons. I was busy with the restaurants. Maricela was busy with she used to work for McKinsey at that time. My other partner also was busy with something else. We did our MVP was a small beauty salon. And long story short, that started to become very successful. And we were, let's just forget about that tech part, which I personally love. But it was in the moment in our lives, and that has grown right now, and it's still going. We have 5 branches now of that company. It's called Glam Express. It operates in Monterrey, Mexico. At the time, I was living in Monterrey, and that's still going on. And then when I moved to Austin 3 years ago, I I had just closed down the restaurants, not because they were doing bad, but because it was a personal realization that it had been 8 years and I already had three branches, but I wasn't really doing what I love to do.
Mhm.
And it was COVID, and we thought I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I'm happily married. So as a family, we thought it would be a good idea to move to the U.S. for our kids, for them to have a better education, because at that time government had shut down all education in Mexico. So when we moved here, at that time I was already connected in the startup world and in the entrepreneurial world. So that's why we had to move to Texas, because my business was in Mexico. My husband's business is in Mexico. So it had to be close. And Austin was a city that made sense because of my connections to BC. I
Mhm.
know I haven't talked about that. So how did I'm asking myself? I'm okay. I'll let you ask questions and tell you why I started investing in BC.
Yeah, no, that's great. Keep rolling.
Okay. While I was managing the startup that then became like a traditional beauty salon company and then the restaurants, I started to become frustrated with I felt that I wasn't reaching my objectives, and I had some cash on hand because of my past endeavors. And I decided that I had to walk the talk a bit instead of the entrepreneurial part. So I started becoming very curious about angel investing, because all this that I told you about traveling around the world made me realize, or made something that grew up in me about realizing how many inequalities were in the world, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the VC ecosystem in Mexico and in Latin America. It's super small compared to the one in the US, which I had opportunity to witness. So a way to start helping that my area of the world, if you want to say, and so in Latam, it's not as easy as here to get access to capital. And also in Latin America, if you're not born like in a wealthy family or in a family with good connections, it's much more difficult to get by than if you're born in the US. And for me, that was like super frustrating. So I wanted to help somewhat change that. So that's what got me into the angel investing world. That was parallel to my other two businesses.
Mhm.
So when then going back to Austin and to real estate, we moved to Austin. I was already an advisor for a startup here, and I stopped operating completely my company at Glam Express in Mexico. Marisela, my business partner, my other two business partners are operating that full time. And that's when, for me, that changed. I reinvented myself because I love to work. I have always worked, and I had no clue what I was going to do with my time here. So I had to make a decision. I could go back to corporate, which I love, or I could just continue the entrepreneurial side. And I was curious about investing in real estate. I had already invested passively in a multifamily fund. So it was like the low hanging fruit. I would like to say it in a more sexy way, but honestly, it was like the low hanging fruit. And what things started developing organically, because we had contacts that wanted to invest in the US that trusted me. And with my business background, I started evaluating some opportunities. And long story short, right now, we built Tule Capital. And I've been doing that full time right now. And basically, what we do is we raise capital from most of our investors are Hispanics in the US or people from Latin America that want to invest in US real estate. And that's what I've been doing full time since 3 years ago. I still have the restaurants. I closed them. That I sold them, but it was like, it's not
It
like I
wasn't a
mean,
liquidity event.
exactly. It was just like the brand's still there. It's a good brand. I sometimes go and look at the recipes and stuff. Sometimes maybe when I'm older I can revive it. But yeah, and the other business is still there. And I just participate in the big decisions as opening new branches, getting more bank loans, etc. But I'm full time doing real estate and evaluating real estate opportunities focused on the capital raising side.
Mhm. So you mentioned earlier that you said you saw your dad build a business and he was an entrepreneur. What did he do?
He built a supermarket chain like stores. HEB, Albert HEB is very local. Albertsons is also local. Walmart, but smaller. Those type of stores. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Then margins and hard work, but
Hard work, thin margin. It's like having many different business types inside one. Yeah. It's
yeah,
interesting because that data, like, it was nice to have data to that trends, even locally, because we were important in the northeast of the country. But I love to access the data and see where the trends on the different, say, like pet food growing or all that. It's just, it's interesting. But yes, it's like when I had, for example, when I was struggling with the restaurants, I went to the company and came in and saw how people were doing things there and took best practices to my small thing, right? Because there's many different small departments in a supermarket store and the competition is huge. So we were bought
yeah.
by a big, I think it's the third largest or second largest retailer after Walmart in Mexico that bought us recently.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in Cincinnati, and this is where Kroger is based. They're
Okay.
like right there, so
Mm.
familiar generally. So yeah, you have a vast background of different experiences. Something though that since we talked last time, I have been listening to this book. It's called American Nations, and it's about says history of the 11 regional cultures of North America. And it's interesting because I grew up in New Hampshire and you went to school in New England,
Yes.
and it talks about the different but now I'm in Ohio and spent some time in California. And so I'm trying to figure out how we tie this back into the podcast, but it's the book itself gives a history of all of the different nations. And it seems like you would be from and in I think they call them the Norteños, like northern Mexico.
Norteños, yes, yes. You're
Yeah.
very knowledgeable. Yeah.
Um, and for many years, they were very isolated from the rest of the country while it was growing up. And then finally, I think with the railroads, that's really what opened them up. But it's just interesting because when you and I talked last time, you mentioned that you were really focused in like Dallas and uh, up and down that border region because of all the industrial and flex that's happening there and apartments as well. So I don't know where we take it exactly, but I just thought as you were talking, this is a real life example of what I've been listening to.
There's an opportunity, and that's why. So when I moved here, I was like, okay, so now what I'm gonna do with my life? And I had already experienced the benefits of investing passively in multifamily, and I had these contacts that were looking for opportunities and that trusted me. And also, I had the vision and about what's happening in the world, this economic war going between China and the US that has been going for the past years. I'm sure there's an opportunity there. For me, it just made sense to focus on real estate and to focus on this region because I'm here passively. I have invested in Florida, Arizona, and Texas. And I know there's some other great states to invest in. But my investor base is interested in Texas and I'm based in Texas. And I feel that somewhat like sometimes I ask myself, like, how is my BC tech background? How does that merge with my real estate investing background? But I feel that at some point, all this war and all this economic shift that's going in the world and the companies relocating from China to the border of Mexico to the northern Mexico, that connects to real estate. So I like to think that somehow I can add value in that space. For example, I also I'm a licensed real estate agent. I just don't do it. I don't market myself as one. I've helped actually investors from my fund. I help represent them in real estate transactions here in Texas. It came organically, and I wish I had the time, and I'm focusing on getting the time to be more knowledgeable about these opportunities. I want to focus on commercial. I buy brokers, a real small broker that does commercial and residential. But actually, you didn't ask a question. You were like, so why do we focus on Texas? Because we are here, because it's a market growing. It's a market that our investor base is interested in. And I do believe that with my bicultural background, knowing the Latino culture and knowing the American culture and the two languages, I can add value in whatever is gonna or whatever. I feel that many opportunities are going to arise
Yeah.
in all these that I've said. I don't know if it's clear enough or not. I still don't know exactly what, but I'm in the midst of discovering. Like in the meantime, we have continued doing deals so far as a fund. So we built Tule Capital as a company. Tule comes from the Americans call it Tule, but it's Tule Capital. Tule is from the Árbol del Tule. It's a tree in Oaxaca, Mexico. And we built it in order to bring these opportunities to our investors, right? And so far, we've done only multifamily deals, but we aim to have different types of deals because as when the market shifts, sometimes the opportunity is not like it's in different type of asset classes, right? So my aspiration is to continue learning other asset classes. There's a huge interest in industrial. The hard part, and it takes a lot of time, and you might know better than me, is to do the adequate due diligence with the operator to see who's the people, such as in a startup, who's the people that's behind, who's operating the opportunity. That would make the difference if the deal is good or not. Because in
Yeah.
Excel, everything seems beautiful always, right?
Right.
So we're working on that, on building relationships here, building relationships there in Latin America, and putting those opportunities together.
Mhm.
But
So,
we're a pretty new company.
yeah. But so back to when you were evaluating startups, what were some of the things that you would key on that you're like, okay, yeah, I think this is something that I want to pursue because I think they're going to be successful?
First of all, and everyone's gonna tell you is the team. And the team is not necessarily the curriculum about pedigree, business schools or whatever, but it's more about if the people that are moving, making things happen are resilient and are capable of being flexible and of finding answers. But the value that the team has, their values have to be aligned with mine. Of course, the size of the market, but there's and another thing that's very important, and especially these times, is if there's a product market fit. If the product market fit is there, and if they already have some customers. In terms of investing, it depends in what stage and where they want to focus. Because if you go back to the traditional VC companies that they invested for the companies to just grow and burn the money. That's not like my case because I don't have just money to throw away. And I like to see that the founders are solving and improving whatever that they're trying to do that their clients needs, right? So I would say it would be that team, and the product market fit would be that tool that, and the opportunity, as I said, the opportunity that they're tapping. I personally like to invest in companies that are working on things that I like, that I see an opportunity that could make a better something for someone.
How about companies that are predicting real estate transactions?
No, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's amazing. Because the hardest part, and now that you bring right now, since Mexican elections that recently passed, and you know what's happening in Venezuela right now, it's impressive how many people with money, like there's a lot of wealth in Latam that's being transferred to the US because of what's happening in Latin America about communist type governments
Yeah.
are making wealthy people want to move their money here to the US. And there's not a lot of people talking to these or showing them the right way to do stuff because there's not a lot of people knowledgeable about how they can invest here without putting in risk their I forget the word in English.
The principal.
Yeah, their
Yeah.
principal or no, or because there's so many taxes that are and there's not a lot of that know that. But you asked a question before this. I wanted to get to a point. Oh yes, about your yeah. So now I remember what I was gonna say. So right now the hardest part is to find the opportunity. So what you're doing, like the data, is the most important. I'm seeing the world right now as the real estate right now, at least from my personal side, is that I have tons of people waiting for me to tell them where to put their money.
Mhm.
And I see, and since there's a lack of money, at least in the US, I don't know if you've noticed or from your, I would like to see how you're seeing it, but I feel that right now pockets are closed from the big investors. And it's not like that in Latin America. So more and more, I'm exposed and invited to participate in more real estate opportunities. But the hardest part is to evaluate if they're good or not, and data is crucial for that. And I know
Mhm.
that like what you're doing.
Yeah. So what we're seeing, and I don't have any stats necessarily to back it up at the moment, but anecdotally, uh, I'll say from probably August of last year until maybe July of this year, it was pretty difficult to there. It's almost like the market stopped. There are some transactions, but definitely volume had increased significantly. I think by at least 60% for if I'm remembering some stats. Now we've got a number of deals that are under contract. Our valuations have the quantity or number of deals that we're looking at for valuations has increased. But I'd say the biggest thing is that the spread between what the seller wants up here and what the buyer wants has tight. It's the gap is short. Um, we're seeing more opportunities where it's okay. Yeah, we think that can work. And that's based mostly on debt. Like I was talking to somebody yesterday and they're looking at doing a refinance and they're at like, he quoted me like 4.83 was his interest rate on like a 200 unit multifamily deal. I was like, did you buy that down? That sounds amazing. No,
Eh?
that's just market today. So
Wow.
that's pretty awesome. And so if those,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was gonna ask you if what do you focus on a specific asset class or is your
yeah,
experience across all asset classes?
yeah, I've basically always done apartment my whole career. I think I've done one or two leases and I sold one small industrial building, but predominantly it's been multifamily my whole career.
Okay. And you were saying now that you see that the market is starting to get a bit more.
Yeah, it's so last year the average spread between buyer and sellers was like 20%. We'd see some as high as 30, 40%. Like I remember I did a valuation for somebody and yeah, we want 65. And I was like, all right, great, 65 million. And I was like, okay, good. Let's see the numbers. And we were struggling to get to 50. And I was like, how? It's a 4.5 cap. And I was like, in what world? We are looking at almost 7 caps at the time. Okay, yes, it's a newer asset. You could bend the cap rate down a little bit for that, not to the extent he was expecting. Those, what I would say, unrealistic expectations have faded to the back, and we're seeing deals get done again. We've got a number of deals under contract, closings happening, both development sites and existing assets, but those have development sites are tough. I made a very deliberate push to chase land deals for development for a few years. And it was good in that I understand the development side now. And I'm in the midst of it. I'm renovating a 6 unit apartment building right
Right
now.
now?
Yeah. I had a draw walk with my lender right before this. So like from that perspective, it's good. I get how things are made, but there are so many variables and it takes forever. I think if you're in a market where there's a lot of demand and it's easy to work with the municipality, probably not a bad thing to do. But the market I'm in, it's really challenging to work with the city to get them to approve your plans. So, and then abatement that I think what a lot of developers don't understand, or not developers, but cities and municipal officials don't understand is that the word profit is not a bad thing. And abatements are simply tools for developers to be able to justify going out and taking all this risk because otherwise it's just a break even proposition. And why would you do that? Why
I
would you?
just like money in the bank.
Yeah. Why would you go sign on personal guarantees, take all this risk? just to net out with the same dollars as you went in. And, but anyway, I think the point of all that was to say, yes, we've done apartments predominantly. We've got a bunch of sites that are development as well as existing assets under agreement, but the development space is tough. And existing assets, there are a lot. If you can get control of it and then go out market it, you can definitely find the right buyer for it as long as it's not too hairy.
Yes. It's a super wide area, like to see where to focus. That's why we haven't been able to move away from apartments now, because that's where we have invested. That's where we are knowledgeable of. But we, like right now, my next objective different from many people. You hear stories, real estate stories. I have a real estate podcast. It's called Real Estate Talks. We interview people like you only in Spanish, because me and my co-host Gabby, she was actually my realtor. It's targeted to the Hispanic market. And normally the stories that you hear from real estate are from people that started with fix and flip and then single family homes and then moving to multifamily. I personally started differently. Like I started investing in multifamily as an LP, then building my fund. And then with my fund, I work on a fund model in some opportunities. In others, we work as co-GPs. But now I want to go smaller to buying apartment building. I still love apartment buildings because of the scalability and economies of scale, basically. But I'm looking for a smaller unit size building where I have more ownership or full ownership, maybe
Mhm.
32 units, 16 units, etc. So yeah, like my story is totally different from any other or from most of the real estate investors. Yeah.
Mhm.
That I
So what I've seen a lot of groups, especially as the market changed over the past like year or two, and some of these much larger companies, whereas we only want 250, 300 units minimum. And they were starting to dip down into the lower sized assets. And the thing that happens, unless you have in my experience, from what I've seen, unless you have an ongoing management presence in that market to try and fold a 30 unit in when you don't have anything around is really challenging.
Oh, yes, of course. It's something I personally am looking for something local, and which is
Yeah.
hard. Local for me, like San Antonio. Like I've done a lot of transactions in San Antonio for investors. Something not further away than 2 hour drive, right?
Okay.
But yes, I agree with you. It's just that I come from operations. I have the restaurants, I have the beauty salons, and I feel that as a fund manager, which I love analyzing deals, but I want to get my hands a little bit dirty. Like I'm going the opposite as everybody normally wants to just move out and just focus on the capital raising. And right now we have a good funnel for the capital raising part. We have investors wanting to put their money in, and I just want to have more ownership, have more influence within my deals. Right? But yes, that's where we're going right now. And it's so funny because when the market started changing, people were like, "Oh, interest rates are so high, blah blah blah." But coming from my background, it's not that bad. 5%.
Yeah.
It's at least you have money, access to money. Not it's all relative in life, and I feel that I don't know. Let's see what happens. I'm sure interest rates will go down at least after the elections, and as you, I feel unemployment is still good. Employment is still good. Like unemployment is not, it's not bad. So I feel we're in a good time for investing. Because coming from the times that we were 3 years ago, that was crazy. And you probably have seen it, like people buying properties for prices that like super high prices now are having trouble.
We're even still seeing some of that high price hangover, you might say. So there's one deal in the market where investors are salivating over it and the attorney is running the process. So there are varying opinions on how great he's doing at it. But the price per unit that they're asking, and they keep pushing it and pushing it. I think the danger in chasing a price, and if you're the one that gets it, you're like, wait, why? If price is the only thing that you're fighting on, and then you're the one that gets it, you're like, wait, am I the sucker? Am I the dummy? Do I have to
Yes.
do I have to go and pull a retrade and try and bring this thing back in the line? And then if I do that, am I at risk of losing the deal? And so we'll see how it plays out. I certainly don't wish anybody uh, any malice, but it's like, yeah, come on, yeah,
Are you right now focused more on your startup or on investing or half and half or on your broker?
it's
Okay.
interesting. So as far as Needle goes, we are getting ready for a true go to market, probably a soft launch here at the end of the month, and then true. So what we want to do is be able to onboard some of those initial people that were beta testers to us and really perfect that process, figure out how they can buy licenses online without having to go through me or somebody else running a demo and then sending out different contracts. And then brokerage is a full-time job. But what I found, so we thought we were at a point earlier in the year where we were going to be able to go to market like April.
Mm.
And so I started ramping things up and I was doing demos and the first half of my year was incredible. I was on fire. So it was like I was pulling double duty but they're complementary because what I was doing is I was calling through and using Needle, a platform to do my prospecting. And like I pulled in some listings and I'm negotiating a deal right now that they were both, I pulled in a listing that was flagged as hot. I pulled in two deals that were flagged as hot and we're negotiating a contract on both on those latter two, all as a result of using Needle. So I don't know. So to answer your question, I'm doing a little bit of everything. So I'm also acting as a GC on my development deal and then doing this too. But I like to be busy. Feel like if I'm not, that I'm leaving something on the table. Like I
Yeah,
could be
like you're
doing
gonna make
more.
your days count. Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, I'm just trying to make the best of it while I can.
great.
Yeah. This has been great. Is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up?
No, I guess not. Just thank you for the space. We talked a little bit about everything. Keep me on the loop if you find a good opportunity worth sharing with my investor base. As I said, right now, the hardest part has been finding opportunity that makes sense. And no, I'm happy. I'll take a look. I haven't gotten to your platform. I promise I'll go
I'll send you a link
yes,
for a
please.
demo.
Yes, please. I would love to try it out. Because I do feel something that I can tell you coming from the business world and then being more active in real estate. I feel there's so many opportunities in real estate that could be sold by technology that haven't been tapped into. More and more, I see more solutions, right?
Mm.
There's even like from my background, I see there's a huge opportunity using blockchain technology for transactions
Or
between different
title. Yeah.
it's in different countries on title. Like there's so many opportunities and it's interesting to find someone with a tech background and also real estate. So I love getting to know you more and having this conversation.
Yeah. Here, let's wrap the podcast up. If there's somebody, and then I'll show you a demo afterwards. If there's somebody who does have a great deal in San Antonio or within a 2 hour drive of that, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Oh yeah. So my email it's Lala LA at Tule.capital, Tule.capital. That's I guess that would be the best way. And my website is Tule.capital also. And yeah, I would say that would be the best way to get in touch with me.
Perfect. All right.
Right.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
You're welcome. You too.
All
Bye.
right.